right, well, I'm getting the thumbs up from the back, so it looks like it's time for us to get started. Good to see everybody out this morning. I think we're a few short. I know Danny was been scrambling to get the service schedules filled out, so he may be tapping you on the shoulder here. If you're here this morning, you may get tapped, so be ready for that in the men for working in the service this morning. Well, let's begin with a word of prayer. We're going to start our class. Father in heaven, we're thankful for this day of life you've given us. We're thankful for the safety we've had to get here this morning, for this time we can come out and study from your word. We're thankful for your word. We're thankful for revealing your will to us and your wisdom to us and allowing us to have it to study from and learn about you and learn how that we should live our lives as your children. We're thankful for your son and him dying for us. Thankful for forgiveness of our sins and help us to always be penitent and be mindful of the things that we're doing and ensure that we're striving to live as you would have us to. We pray your blessings on our whole teaching program, all our teachers this morning in our classes, that you'll bless us in what we're doing, help us to encourage and edify one another in all that we do and to strive to spread the gospel in the community. We pray that you'll forgive us of our sins. We make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so we're continuing in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 today. And it's actually a short one. We only have 10 verses, so we'll welcome all your comments and we'll trudge along and hopefully we may get done a little early. But if we do, if we don't, we don't. So we'll see how that goes. So I need just two readers. I get two readers, so I got a Buddy and Danny. Okay, Buddy, you can go first, and then Danny.
Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8. For you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. If the tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. And you do not know the way of the Spirit, the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with a child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening hold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good.
Light is sweet, and it is pleasant to the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in all. And let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let not your heart cheer you. And let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart, in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart, and put away pain from your body. For youth and dawn of life are vanity.
Great. All right, so when I was studying for reading through this chapter, it kind of impressed me as a lot of just kind of practical points. There's a lot of practical points being made that we can make application of in several areas. So we're going to talk about kind of the obvious application of them to start with, and then I want us to think about how do we take the principles that are being taught and make some spiritual application of them in each one of these verses. So we begin with verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you find it after many days. A lot of versions say cast your grain upon the waters versus bread. So what's the practical lesson being taught here?
Like doing good. I mean,
okay.
Without looking for reward. You just do it.
Okay. That's more on the spiritual side. Jordan?
Yeah, being generous yields it profitable for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, just from kind of a quote-unquote financial point of view, what's this talking about? Investment, right? This is talking about investment. So it's kind of like cast your bread or grain on the waters. You'll find it after many days. In other words, it'll come back to you. So when we think about when we're doing practical financial planning, what do? Are you being responsible financially if you spend every penny you get as soon as you get it? Probably not, right? I mean, there may be situations where you have to do that, and that's okay. But if we're going to, there's principles that financial advisors would teach us, right? Like save and invest and be smart with your investments. And, when you're younger, you invest a little riskier, and as you get older, you do less risky, that kind of stuff, right? There's a principle there of investment with the thought process being, if I invest, what happens later? It comes back, right? That it matures, that I receive benefit from that in those investments in the longer term, whether it's in retirement or for my children or whatever, right? That there's a principle there. Go ahead, Danny.
It is interesting in chapter 11 because there's so much of the time spent with saying like, hey, wisdom is vanity, folly is vanity, and all these kind of stuff, and then you get to chapter 11 and it's hey, but don't give up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good principles here. And the little overview for this chapter that I found said, Ecclesiastes 11 emphasizes the uncertainties of life and encourages living with a sense of purpose, generosity, and wisdom in the light of these uncertainties. The chapter offers practical advice for navigating life's unpredictability and highlights the importance of sowing good deeds, taking risks, and living wisely despite the challenges that may arise. So when we think about this now this is where Daryl and Jordan started to go in. Okay, so from a spiritual point of view, how can we make application of this? Buddy, you want to say something?
Actions bear fruit.
Exactly. Yeah, Jesus said, how you know something? How you know what kind of tree it is? By its fruit. So then, is it worthwhile for us to invest spiritually? Absolutely, right. So how do we invest spiritually?
Sometimes it's monetary.
Okay.
Sometimes it's
time. Time. What about in people? Do we invest in people?
Getting out of our comfort zone, reaching out to folks.
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone with the expectation of what? Why do we invest spiritually? For a return, right? For ourselves, for one thing, right? And to grow God's kingdom, right? So when we're investing spiritually, we're trying to grow and bring returns for God's kingdom. What's the classic example of this? Jesus uses it, I guess probably Paul uses it too, of seed time and harvest, right? Why does the farmer get out and plant seeds? Just for the fun of it? And he just forgets about them? No, what's he expecting? He's expecting a harvest, right? Soybeans, corn, whatever it is he's growing. He expects it to grow. And that's the planting is his investment, right? He expects it to grow, and he reaps that harvest. And obviously that example is used a lot about us in spreading the gospel, right? And teaching others. This planting the seed and then allowing that increase to occur. So anybody have any other comments? Go ahead.
This is an obvious thought, but God invests in us, and then in return we invest.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. There's a couple of verses in Proverbs, like Proverbs 19. It's kind of interesting. It says, "Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord." Oh, that's kind of interesting. You think about that, but that comes to what Darlene was talking about. We help people at times, right? We have a responsibility to do good to all, especially the household of faith, right? That's an investment, isn't it? That's us investing our money in folks that need help, and again, we're not expecting a monetary return from that, right? But we're expecting, again, growth of ourselves and of the kingdom by making that kind of investment. Okay, anybody else have anything on the first verse? All right. So the second one, give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on the earth. Okay, now from our financial analyst point of view, what is the point here? Is it smart to go off and only buy one kind of stock and you just put all your money into Bitcoin or something. It's diversifying, right? That's the principle in this verse, is diversifying. Why is it smart, again, financially, to diversify?
Because one stock may crash, the others will hold you.
Yeah, right. You're looking for this, the portfolio, I guess that's the right word to use. You're looking for a portfolio that's got, some in it that's a little riskier than others. Maybe you want some bonds or something, the stuff that's going to pay not as much, but it's going to, it's going to pay every year kind of thing. Again, he comes out and says it because what can happen? Disaster, right? The market can crash. If you look at the stock market, it goes up and down, doesn't it? It tends to, in long term, it has tended to trend upward, but it goes up and down. So the smart investor is going to have his portfolio diversified. That's the word that's used, right? It is diversified so that it can stand up against those disasters that might come along. Okay?
Even in agriculture,
Yeah.
it's probably wise if the farmer owns high ground and bottomland with your dry years, you've got some balance there to offset no matter what the conditions are.
Good point. And plant different crops, right? Plant winter wheat in the winter, right? That's a great way to think of it from an agriculture point of view. So how do we diversify from a spiritual perspective in our spiritual investments?
Teach more people, because not all people are going to speak the word.
Yeah, well, what does Jesus say about that when he sends his disciples out?
The parable of the sword.
That's one. Yeah. What else?
They don't receive it, wipe your feet.
Yeah, there's a point where, and it's unfortunate, isn't it? But there's a point when our investment of time in someone that's not going anywhere, it may be time to move on, isn't it? That's difficult, especially if it's somebody we're close to or a family member, that we're trying to teach about Christ. But it does come to the point at a time where they just have to make a decision, right? Either yes or no. And there's not a whole lot more that we can do, and we need to move on to somebody else because we need to be spreading the word as widely as we can spread it. We see that example as well about casting a wide net. Right? When another example that Jesus made because we need to make sure that we are getting the gospel to as many folks as possible. And also kind of the same principle, the future is unpredictable, right? So from a spiritual point of view, again, that investment, we want to strengthen ourselves spiritually. Because what may we face spiritually? Same word. There can be disasters that happen in the church that we have to deal with, isn't it? It could be our government could change. All of a sudden, we don't have the freedoms that we have now. Or there could be strife that comes along. It has to be dealt with. Things like that can cause we like our nice, comfortable worship, right? It's nice to be good and comfortable, but in times it can get uncomfortable. And in those times, that investment, hopefully in strengthening ourselves, will pay off. What about in our study? Is it important? Should we study the Gospel of John every quarter? Well, why not? John a good gospel? Yeah, but again, but you recognize he doesn't teach us everything, right? Paul teaches us stuff. Revelation teaches us stuff. Daryl, he's good with the Old Testament stuff. All that Old Testament stuff that I never studied, Daryl likes, But that's true. I'm sitting here in a lot of Daryl and Danny's classes, being like, man, I should have studied this more. Because there's so much good stuff in it, right? But that's the point. And I think that's the point. Don't you think that speaks to the wisdom of God, that His Word is diversified? In the sense that we can learn a lot, we can learn different things, and it can keep it fresh for us as we study it. Danny?
I think even just thinking of ourselves, like I mentioned, like comfort. We're not meant to be Christians that this is the one thing I do.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I do, and I'm comfortable with that. The word
Good point. Good point. Anybody else? Did Jordan?
Another, I think this might have been Brinker's, one of his sermons, it was basically on diversification, but it said that God diversifies the Gospels. You got Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and then John that puts it all together. And then God diversifies wisdom. He gives you Job's perspective. He gives you Proverbs' perspective, and then he gives you Ecclesiastes, Solomon's perspective. So he even diversifies how you take in from three different viewpoints.
Good point. Good point. And even within the church, there's diversity, right? We've got males and females, old and young, and they all bring different perspectives and different strengths and weaknesses, and we all work together to move forward, right? So, all right, verse 3. So if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will be. So what's this practically teaching us, buddy?
I like this because it reminds me of when in the New Testament about talking about the birds of the air have shelter, like they're provided for, and how much about us worrying can't have the hair on our head, and God will take care of everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Continue to happen.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
The two words I used here were unpredictability and inevitability. I can say that. So is it going to rain? Yeah, but do we know when? Sometimes the weathermen do an okay job, right? But Tom was telling me in the morning he got a notification on his phone it was about to rain. Look out! So it was white rain this morning, though, wasn't it? But ultimately it's going to rain. Kind of the same thing with the tree falling. Our tree's going to fall. Rodney, do we know when? No. In fact, it's dangerous walking around Rodney's yard, according to what he said. So, no, you don't. It's going to fall, but you don't know when. Is it going to fall towards your house or away from your house? Hopefully, away from your house, right? But just talking about what is that getting at? Then that's getting at life, isn't it? It kind of comes back to the investment and the diversifying that there's always unpredictability but inevitability that's going to happen in life. That things are going, some of the obvious one is our death. Do we know when we're going to die? But are we going to? Right. Where does that point us in? Preparedness, right? So if we're going, because things, we don't know when things are going to happen or exactly how they're going to happen, it requires us to be prepared for certain things to happen, right? That's why we do that in investing. I deal with this every day in quality with we're calling failure modes and effects analyses. We're looking for trying to figure out how can this part fail and then how are we going to keep it from failing, right? It's just part of what we do, and we do that with our lives. So what about spiritually? So again, I think we already pointed at it, but do we need to prepare spiritually? Yes, right, and we do that with our understanding of God and salvation. But I think more where this is pointed to is in just thinking about others, right? In helping us, we are prepared, but we also need to be helping others prepare as well, right? That's back to the investment point, because everybody, the same thing like this is saying with the rain and the trees. That same thing about death is true for everybody out there that's not saved, just like all of us in here that are, right? And obviously we're in a better shape than they are, and we need to share that with them to try to get them where we are when it comes to being prepared for that time of our life and being ready to respond. So, anybody have any comments on that verse? Go ahead, Daryl.
Am I wrong? This almost seems like a contrast. Like there are things like if the clouds are full of rain, okay, it looks like it's going to rain. There are some things that are predictable, but there's a lot of other things that aren't.
Yep.
And that's just life.
Yeah, it is. Anybody else? Danny?
There's been a lot. I can't help but think about the quote where it's like, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to meet my final destination. I think that's all over these verses.
Mm-hmm.
There's all time and chance happening to them all, but you still
Anybody else? All right, verse 4. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. So what's the principle here?
Sky is falling.
Yeah, well, you know, can we be to the point of being so scared or so careful that we do nothing? Clint, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that the entire book of Ecclesiastes talks about the vanity and futility of trying to know and control the future. You know, these things you can't control, and you know, it's the same deal. You can't be paralyzed by trying to, oh well, is it gonna rain? You know that kind of deal. You have to. There's no substitute for duty. You know.
Yeah, that comes back to your agriculture example for sure, right? If you're saying, oh, it looks like it might rain today, I better not go plow. Oh, look, next day, still kind of, what ends up happening? You never get it plowed, you never get anything planted, then ultimately there's no harvest, is there? So this is speaking to, there's an element of risk that we have to be willing to take, isn't it? When it comes to back to our financial example, when we're making investments, there's a risk there. The other option is to go bury it in a jar in the backyard, right? Or stuff it in a mattress or something. That's an approach. But what's the weakness of that approach? It don't grow, right? There's no growth involved with that kind of approach. And I think that's the point. If we're not willing to take a little bit of risk anyway, then we're likely not to grow. And now, how do we apply that spiritually then? Well, the first thing I always think of here, and I know I'm just as guilty of anybody of doing this, and be like, well, I need to learn a little more before I go try to teach anybody. And is that true? But do we ever know enough? That's the problem, isn't it? We can get to ourselves, okay, well, I need to do one more thing before, versus taking that risk of just going and trying. What happens if you don't know something? Somebody asks you a question that you don't know.
You get to learn.
You get to learn. You go ask Rodney, right? Or if you have a question, you go ask somebody. You bring in somebody that has more knowledge than you. But if you never take that risk to go teach, or even to teach even here, right? I know that Jim was making the point for the next couple of quarters of some of the classes we got going about kind of getting people to take a little more risk. Right, of being willing to participate in teaching and things like that. Because it's not, it's for me, I got a big mouth and don't mind talking, so it's not a big deal for me to stand up here and do this. Now, you tell me I got to lead singing, that's a problem. That's a problem for you and for me. But again, there's some of us, it's hard to get up here and talk in front of people. Right? And that's a risk that can be taken to strive. Again, why? It's to grow, isn't it? To strive to grow, to take that risk to help us to grow as Christians. And then, as we learn to teach amongst where it's safe teaching here, right? That gives us courage that maybe we can go out and try teaching out where it's not quite as safe, right? Where the questions are harder, or may even be intentional to try to trip us up and make us stumble in what we're doing. So, anybody else have any comments on this one? Go ahead, Tom.
We can prepare, take advantage of the opportunity within the bounds of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. Anybody else? What if they don't like you? That's a big deal, though, isn't it? Well, if I ask them about their spirituality, they might not like me anymore. They may shun me. That's a real, especially think with the classes that Clint and Jordan are teaching. With kids, the younger kids bringing that kind of stuff up. That's a big deal, right? I mean, that's peers and what other people are going to think about me if I talk to them about this kind of thing. Anybody?
Along those same lines, like, we can't completely block off the secular world, but the other part of that is the secular world can block us off.
That's true. They can. They may not want to, but what is the minimal responsibility we have to those kind of folks is to set the right example, isn't it? If they won't listen to us teach, that's fine, but we can still let them see us living as a Christian and set that example for them. All right, verse 5. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones of the womb of the woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. So what about this one? What's our point here? How many of us really, let's be honest, when we're having children, how many of us really sit down and worried about how it worked? How the cells got together, started dividing, you know, how lungs showed up and brain showed up and eyes showed up and all that stuff. Did we really worry about that? Why not?
God take care of that.
God take care of it, right? And it's obviously it's a natural process that He's put in place. But that's kind of the point. The point here, isn't it? We've been talking about kind of this investment stuff and all that, and that, you know, our fear of uncertainty. But at least, especially from our perspective, what's in the background? God, right? God is in the background. God is active. So you do not know the work of God who makes everything. Is that a problem? No, not as long as we kind of realize that's the way it is. I don't think we obviously weren't meant to know all the things of how God works, right? We see there's verses about, you know, His wisdom and His ways are what? Higher than ours, right? There's some things we don't understand and probably aren't meant to understand. But what can we count on?
That God is there.
Yeah, that God is there, right? That God is there, that God is working. So as we pull this back to wisdom, you know, there's mystery. And even, you know, we look at the gospel. How many folks in the Old Testament really understood what was going on with the gospel, where all that was headed? Even the prophets, even the apostles didn't understand, right? Till finally the mystery of God was revealed. But was He working? Absolutely, right? Ever since the fall in the garden, He was working to bring His children back through Christ. And it took quite a while to accomplish all that, but He was working whether the folks during those time frames saw it or not. And for us, wisdom for us acknowledges this and trusts God. Right? We may not understand what's going on, why it's going on, whatever, but we still, as His children, have the responsibility to behave as He would have us to behave and strive to teach His word and all that kind of stuff. And some things are just in the hands of God, and we just need to leave it there, right? And trust in that as we move forward. So, anybody have any? Daryl or Darlene, go ahead.
We live by faith. Though they didn't understand, there were those who knew he would do it, whatever it was, even though they didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because that's all those folks in Hebrews, right, that did all that stuff by faith. Daryl?
That's a profound thing too, like man can figure out how the body's formed and all that, but that's a profound thing, how the way the Spirit comes into it.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. Yeah.
Good point. Anybody else? All right, verse 6. And in the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know what will prosper, this or that, whether both or whether both alike will be good. What about this one? Go ahead, buddy.
I think of the famous shoe company, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, my word for this one was persistence. Do we have it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about with investments and stuff. But you know, when we read this one, it's back kind of your sowing. This is back to sowing and reaping kind of thing. You know, plant some seeds in the morning, plant some in the evening. Again, to what Jim said earlier, you plant some on the high ground, plant some on the low ground, because maybe both of them will prosper, maybe one or the other will. We don't know. But instead of being scared to go do it, be persistent. You know, it's kind of the contrast that we see here. You know, and we think about this, because again, sometimes the frustration can become involved. Right, and I was asking Rodney this, and I think it's right. So Edison invented the light bulb, right? Is that right? So, but if you study it, how many times did he try? How many times did he get it wrong before he got it right? A whole bunch, right? A whole bunch of times he got it wrong before he finally got it right. Well, why didn't he quit? Persistence, right? He believed in something, didn't he? That he believed that he could accomplish this, and he never quit trying. The other one I've always heard people talk about, if adults were like babies, if babies were like adults, would they ever learn how to walk? Because how many times do they fall down? Over and over, and what do they keep doing? Just getting right back up, don't they? Now they are closer to the ground, so I guess that does help. But it's persistence because it's built in them obviously. But they see other people walking, and it's like I want to do that, and they just will keep trying and trying and trying until they finally get it. So again, spiritually, do we need to be persistent? Yeah, good, Rodney, go ahead.
When I read this, I thought too about the idea of, he says, so see the morning and evening, which will prosper. The idea, the end result is not up to us. Our job is to sow the good, of the Lord, and let Him take care of it, because like you said, the frustration, all that sometimes comes as we do good and we look at people and go, well, that was a waste, or it seems, in our thinking, when in fact, we've done the Lord's will, and He's the one that brings about the results, the prosperity.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember a story, and maybe this is just a preacher story. Look, Rodney, you can tell me if it was. But he talks about, it was the story of a meeting, and somebody asked the preacher, how much success did you have in the meeting? Well, I only baptized one couple. Well, then it turns out that couple has 5 gospel preachers or something as children. Again, it comes back to you never know. Don't say that gospel meeting was a waste of your time, right, with one, because you planted the seeds. That's your responsibility, and let God take care of the rest. So, anybody else? All right. Verse 7. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. Another version I read at the end of that verse said, how pleasant to see a new day dawning. And I thought that was a good way to think about it. So my word for this one was encouragement. Just kind of, we've established that God is in control. And we should diversify all these things. We need to be persistent. Don't be afraid of taking some risk. But in this verse, it just kind of comes back to light is sweet and pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. And when I think about it, what does a new day bring? Opportunity, hope. Buddy, were you going to say something else?
Every morning when I wake up, I go to the living room. I open the curtains, and I wait for the sun.
Yeah.
Look for the deer, the animals. It's just very enjoyable. Like this, it's pleasant.
And Daniel's not here. He could probably tell us more about this. But isn't there there's actually physical and physiological stuff that relates here, isn't there? That what sunlight is actually good. Too much of it can be bad for you, but that sunlight is good for you. It actually it makes your mood better. It helps you physically. It does promote the production of vitamin D in your body. There's things that light does for us, right? That we don't need to be in the dark all the time, neither physically or spiritually. And so, this one is kind of, and next we'll get to it a little more as we get in the next couple of verses. But just some, some encouragement, and take time to enjoy the simple pleasures. Just to Buddy's point, a sunny day, open your blinds, let the sun come in and enjoy it. Sit by the window and warm up, whatever. Just there's little things out there. And I think that's what this verse is getting at, just some encouragement. Light is sweet, and there's a new day dawning. Go ahead, buddy.
You can apply this to people too. If you walk into work, somebody's pleasant and bright and happy, well, there's more of a chance that you're going to be pleasant and happy, because that rubs off.
Good point. That's a great point. Actually, we can be light in a sense, right? Like you're talking about here. That's a great point, especially as a Christian. That there's principle there in there that we're supposed to let our what shine? Light, right? Or let our light shine. Good point, buddy. Anybody else?
We are under the assumption that we will have another day.
That's a good one too. Anybody else? All right. Verse 8. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. So he kind of brings us back now, doesn't he, a little bit with what he does, the way he cycles through this book. So it's talking about many years. What's that? What should we do with our time? Rejoice. Spend it wisely. It's okay to enjoy it. But what is his point? And it kind of in the second half of the verse.
The longer you live, the more sad things you'll see.
Okay. The way I kind of thought of it is there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. Right? And that's kind of what this is saying, right? That remember the days of darkness will be many. We're not promised all good days, rosy garden life, right? On this earth because of sin, and we're going to deal with things. So there's going to be good times, and there's going to be bad times. So as far as the principle here, what is this telling us? Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, when I thought about it, it was, you connected it back to verse 7. There's a lot of good days, but if that's all we think of, and that's what we expect our life to be, it's going to be difficult when the dark days rolls around, and we're likely to turn our mind from God. And I think there's the realization that, with the remembrance of the dark days, our eyes stay focused on God during the light days as well, And I think that kind of happened with Israel. All the good days caused them to turn their eyes from God, and he says, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's important that we recognize that life is going to be a mixture, isn't it? It's going to be a mixture of joy and sorrow, and we have to. Wisdom is going to be the thing that helps us deal with that, isn't it? And especially, I think the thing that we need to really take care of, be careful about, is don't you think sometimes we might get a little envious of maybe we're in a dark time and somebody else is in a light time, and be like, well, why am I? Why is God doing this to me, but they're having a good time over here? Well, what's the honest answer there? That at some point, are they going to have some dark times as well? Absolutely. And you're going to have better times. So we don't want to get into a state where we can be, that brings bitterness, doesn't it? If we start thinking about life that way and comparing ourselves and getting upset because we think somebody else has got it better than we do, it's going to set us in a state of bitterness where wisdom would tell us, and the New Testament would tell us, we should rejoice with who? And then what else? And mourn. Right. Again, that's kind of saying the same thing, isn't it? There's going to be times of rejoicing. There's going to be times for mourning. As a Christian, we need to support one another either way, right? Whether it's a rejoicing time or a mourning time, we need to be there for one another. And that's what wisdom would teach us and how to deal with that in our life. So, anybody else?
Our focus is on the darkness, the bad days.
Yeah.
How miserable that is to be with somebody and all they talk about is
The negativity and the bad stuff, yeah. Good point. Dan?
I think it's interesting he says rejoice in them all, because even though there are dark days, I think partly this verse is speaking to the fact that life's still a blessing, even though you're going through dark days.
Yeah. You're still here, right? So, anybody else? All right, that's a couple verses. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. What's our lesson here?
Almost seems like Jeff, this should be the end of that, the beginning of the next chapter. It's good, but it's really neat, the progression of this chapter, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really, really well done.
Yeah, what is this one telling us?
Enjoy being young,
And-
but you're gonna have to get paid.
Yeah, enjoy being young, but be smart about it, right? Because there's an accountability there, and we see that through as we go through the entire book. That enjoyment doesn't give license to anything, especially sin, right? But that's been his whole point a lot of times, hasn't it? That there are things in life that we can enjoy that won't bring us into the judgment of God, right? And those are the things that wisdom would teach us to be focusing on. And that let those things bring cheer. Go ahead, buddy.
I think of this kind of like, when it says young man, but our culture now is like, when you're 18, and around that age, you're free from your parents. You're out of school. They brought you up to be independent, and now you're independent. You're on your own. Now you have to have integrity and wisdom, because you will be judged on what's going to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And as for Stan, that's more emotional maturity. Like, you have to grow up.
Yeah. But what is vexation? Remove vexation from your heart.
One other version, there's notes that say vexation means anger.
Anger, okay. Worry and anxiety are other things that word can mean. Why is it important to remove those from your heart?
The cloud judgment.
Cloud judgment, okay. Again, go ahead. Hey, that's a good word for it. The paralyzed. Again, there's physical applications of this, right? If your heart is full of anxiety to the point you can't even leave your house and things like that, and that's real. That's real for some people. And obviously that's a difficult position to be in, a difficult way to live your life. Then he says, put away pain from your body. Another version says, keep your body healthy. For those of us who are a little older, isn't it amazing how something you hurt when you were 20 years old then bugs you even worse when you're 50? And that it's interesting, isn't it? Things that Rich is smiling back there, jumping out of all those airplanes has had a little bit of effect on him. That it's kind of just some wisdom here, isn't it? That be smart. Clint, quit tearing yourself up playing on the motorbike, right? You're gonna regret that in a few years. No, but we've all done it, right? We've all done it. We know we have. But just some advice here of the better you can take care of yourself when you're young, the better off you're probably going to be as you get older. And we'll be talking about that next week. All the things of getting older. So we got like 30 seconds left. So just a few things here. This chapter teaches us to live wisely in a world full of uncertainties. We're called to take risks, be generous, and act with diligence, even when outcomes are uncertain. We should enjoy life as a gift, live responsibly, and trust God with the results. And then some takeaways for us. Embrace the unpredictability of life with generosity and risk-taking. Don't wait for ideal conditions. Take action in the face of uncertainty. Enjoy life's blessings, but live with an awareness of its brevity and God's judgment. And finally, let go of anxiety and trust God's sovereignty over the uncertainties of life. So thank you for your participation. We've got one chapter left, and then we'll be doing a review. We've got 2 classes left. So we'll do chapter 12 next week, and then the last Sunday of the month we'll have a review. So thank you for your participation, and we'll talk again next week.